and welcome. I'm Tafara Gadamu. Her simple but very well thought out project started with the distribution of pencils across schools in Ethiopia. But Hannah Godefa, a girls' rights advocate and UNICEF ambassador, has grown big in the last 2 years. She's making her points at events that matter. Very well welcome to the program, Hannah.
Thank you.
Again.
Yes, for the second time.
So when we had this discussion, when was it, 2 years ago, 2 years and a half, we talked about your pencil project. You've been appointed as the UNICEF National Ambassador to Ethiopia. That came right after the discussion we had on this show. You're too big now.
Not at all, but I'll definitely say that UNICEF has given me an incredible platform for which I didn't have prior to becoming a UNICEF ambassador, and it gave me a voice to reach out to other kids and for my message to actually be heard and resonate with the people.
So, in a sense, you were not talking about yourself, you're talking about kids your age, right?
Yes, I think a lot of the issues that I've been able to speak out about are more reflective of the children in Ethiopian society here in Ethiopia than of my own life. But in doing so and in having that platform, I've been able to learn more about issues that I was previously uneducated about, such as child marriage or FGM. So I definitely am very grateful for the learning experience that I personally have gone through as a result of it.
What are the things that worry you the most when you think about issues, challenges, problems that girls of your age in Ethiopia and elsewhere face? You just mentioned FGM and child marriage and so on and so forth. Which comes on top of the list? Or do you have a package of problems that you can talk about now?
I think the essential or fundamental issue that I see behind all of these issues, whether it be female genital cutting or child marriage, is girls being able to identify with their worth, and that directly correlates to education, which has been the issue that I've been so passionate about since I started with one pencil. And I think if girls can see themselves and the greater society and community leaders and national leaders and civil society can empower and educate girls and help them identify with their value as deserving of education, deserving of equal access to healthcare, to equity in all sectors, is what I believe will be the challenging issue going forward for the next millennium or in Ethiopia. So I definitely believe that we have to encourage a society where we enrich our young people, specifically our girls, towards an educated future. And in that way, we can eradicate these traditions or these ideals and mindsets that dictate that girls have to be married when they're teenagers, or that they have to undergo harmful practices such as FGM.
But here is my point. You grew up in Canada.
Yes.
Have gone to and still going to one of the best public schools up until you join college. When is it? Next year?
Yes, next year.
You didn't pass through the challenges that women and girls in Ethiopia have gone through. So do you stand on an interesting platform to be able to understand their problems?
Well, I think I've definitely had a much different teenage experience, as I was not directly exposed to child marriage necessarily or FGM, but in conversations and experiences with girls who have gone through those practices or whose sisters and friends have experienced these things, or even their mothers or grandparents, has opened my eyes up to the impact that those things have had in Ethiopian society. My own grandmother was married at the age of 13. So it is a very personal issue to me, even though I grew up in Canada and had a different experience. And I think that as an Ethiopian, it is my responsibility to shed light on those issues, given the platform that I have had over the past few years. And I think that one voice no matter how small, can represent the whole group of girls who are going through these issues. So I definitely believe that although I've had a different experience in Canada, I can shed light on some of the issues that others are facing without being the primary focus of that issue.
You seem to be very keen on girls' education. I think it's very, very, very important, but it's not easy in doing it. It's not easy to address this, because we're talking about encouraging parents to send their kids to school. There are several cultural things involved here. What are the factors that you need to look into in Iran?
Well, I think the first thing is
how do you want to do it? How are you trying to
make it happen?
To make it happen.
I think the first thing we have to do is to recognize that we have to push forward a society that promotes equitable education, equality. So not to prioritize one group over the other, because all children deserve basic education and all children deserve to graduate and continue in school. No child should be forced to have to leave or drop out of school for whatever reason. That shouldn't be the message that we should be promoting for our children here.
How can you translate that message, whatever, into action?
Yeah. Well, I think it's important to recognize, as you said, that there are many groups who are involved in this type of process, and it's not something that I or anyone should expect to happen overnight. And I think that Ethiopia has demonstrated in other areas, such as health, for example, that we can improve and we can transform as a country and bring our standard up for children everywhere. So I think the same model that was applied, let's say, for health and achieving the Millennium Development Goals can be applied for girls' education. And while there are several things to take into consideration, such as cultural context and tradition, it's important to also remember that culture can be dynamic, and culture changes with the time and with the society and with the people. So in doing so and in promoting girls' education, we have to recognize the multitude of stakeholders that are involved, and that's the girls themselves, the parents and the families, the community leaders who have a voice and influence at the grassroots level, the civil society that is supporting these girls' education projects, as well as the government leadership who implements the laws and the legislation that cover education. So we have to mobilize these people towards a sustainable way of encouraging girls' education. And that would be by explaining the benefits of investing in the education process for girls and proving through successful examples of girls who have been educated and continued on to post-secondary school, and demonstrating that to the community and telling them this is what happens when you educate a girl, and now let's implement this change in our society, in our community. I personally met with a young girl named Hafta Takia, and she was at the top of her class in her community, and she shared with me a story about how her community was very, I'd say, intolerant of girls' education, and they encouraged the practice of child marriage. And she was the brightest student in her class, so she received an opportunity to travel to the United States for high school education for a year. And in her time there, she mobilized her society in the States to fundraise money to come back to Ethiopia and to build 2 wells for her community. And the community saw the change that Hafta had pioneered and the innovation that she brought back with her education abroad. And they looked at that example and they said, if this is what this girl is doing for our community, what can we do to ensure that all of our children are being educated and that they have the same opportunities as the Hafta and that they are giving back to us?
What matters, I think, is the parents must send their kids, particularly girls, to school because they are always left behind. Mm-hmm. If there was a boy and a girl sitting there, the boy would get the opportunity and the girl would not. And obviously, quite often in rural Ethiopia, early marriage, gone. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, what matters is whether these people on the ground are ready to change. If they can't change, nothing will.
Well, I do believe that mobilizing at the grassroots level is important, and educating the parents about why specifically they should send their girls to school in addition to their boys. But I think also through successful examples of young people who have made a change in that same route will be the cause or the motivator of parents starting to change their way of thinking. Tradition and culture are two very things that are ingrained in the social fabric of Ethiopia, and it's not something that we will see a dramatic change in so quickly. But I think that if we support and empower young people who are already making a difference at the community level and give them a platform to share their stories, then that's the only way that parents are going to change their mindsets. They have to be able to see other children and other girls who are making a difference. They're not just going to suddenly come up with an idea overnight about wanting to change the way they've been doing things for hundreds of years because someone came into their community and told them to do so. The change has to come from within.
And perceptions die hard.
Yes.
You had a very, very busy schedule. I mean, I see a major shift in the way you're addressing girls' empowerment, girls' education, early marriage, violence against girls, and so on and so forth. You're coming through a different venue, if you will. You've attended very, very important conferences, sessions in the UN, from New York to Dubai to Davos and London, Sydney and so on. You've used every opportunity available to be able to tell your story, the story of girls' empowerment, education, and so on and so forth. This has been a very busy year.
Mm-hmm. Well, I definitely say that all of those conferences or forums that I've participated are very well recognized internationally. And I have tried to use every platform that I have been generously given to share not just my personal story, because I'm a girl from Canada who came to Ethiopia and tried to help supplement the efforts of children who are already doing amazing things here. And I think one of the things that I noticed is a lack of platforms or a lack of sharing stories of children in Ethiopia who are doing amazing things. I have been blessed to have that platform, so I definitely recognize that I have to share what I've been given and allow for other young Ethiopians to come forward and to participate in such global meetings and conferences and to share their stories too, because those are important and those will lend a hand in the efforts for girls' education in Ethiopia. All I can do is be a channel for girls here in Ethiopia to get their message and their story out because they're being directly impacted by it. So I'm just a message or a voice, if you will, for these girls.
Yeah, up until a certain point when you started this pencil project, you were exclusively interested in sending packets of pencils to Ethiopian schools and at some point textbooks for colleges and universities here and so on. You probably thought that's not the way of doing stuff. You have to be able to influence the powers that be. And is that what took you to all these places?
Well, I think it comes as a two-part punch, if you will. I think both aspects of working in girls' education in Ethiopia is important. You have to have the tangibles. So you have to be able to demonstrate accountability and that the project itself has made an impact in the lives of children in Ethiopia. And that was done partly through the Pencil Project and in supporting initiatives that will empower girls here in Ethiopia and being able to see the direct impact of that, which is girls being sent to school and staying in school. But it's also important to introduce these issues to the greater public, not just in Ethiopia, but around the world. Because a lot of people did not necessarily know about these issues, about child marriage, about FGM, or that it was even happening in Ethiopia or in countries who practice these things towards girls. So it's important to raise advocacy and awareness so that people will be more informed and educated about these issues specifically. And it's also important to engage leaders in the discussion, which is partly why I spent so much time trying to advocate at the international level in forums such as the World Economic Forum, which is mainly an area or space for business leaders to come together and talk about innovations in the private sector. And all of a sudden, here was a young person, or several young people who were at the World Economic Forum leading a session on investing in girl empowerment and about child marriage and FGM and other issues that affect girls, such as high dropout rates in secondary education. So that's something completely unheard of in a place like the World Economic Forum. And having those discussions and bringing these issues to the international leadership and international attention is starting to make it the status quo, starting to make these issues prominent parts of foreign discussion, foreign policy, and that's an important part of changing the mindset at the grassroots level. You have to be able to impact and influence the leadership that implements the legislation.
That's not an easy thing, I understand, to do. And of course you are, and of course you're also rubbing shoulders with the powers that be, in business or in politics.
Yes. But I think specifically in Davos, when we held a session on investing in girl empowerment, that was a testament to what you just mentioned, because I personally was able to witness business leaders not just talk about girls' empowerment and education as we've been seeing for a very long time, but actually put their money where their mouth is. And these leaders not only came to listen to the stories that we had to share, but they shared their own stories about what their personal companies and the leadership that they have demonstrated has been doing to support girls' education. We had leaders such as Paul Pullman from Unilever talk about the initiatives that he has supported for girls' education with his company, and not just talk about the work that they've been doing, but deliver the results of that project. So that was an opportunity and a space for people not just to commit to things, but to share about what they have been doing that is tangible and accountable for.
I mean, how do you do that? You're still in high school, and you've been at the very least to what, 1, 2, 3, to 8 conferences?
Well, I think at this point in my education, I have started to take a personal interest in girls' issues and education issues, and making that the focal point of our international and global discussions. So I have chosen personally to follow that path, even in my own education, and try and apply my global experiences to my everyday life at school. And I think that my teachers and my support in administration at my school are very supportive of the work that I've been able to do through this project and with UNICEF. And they are very encouraging about allowing me to have this type of experimental learning in addition to everyday learning in school. So I can definitely apply the lessons that I've learned in advocating internationally to the lessons that I do every day in school, in law and politics classes. They go hand in hand.
And you have done so much, and you've again been appointed for 2 years by UNICEF. They are continuing doing what you have been doing the last 2 years.
Yes.
And there's going to be so much work to be done.
Yes, and I think that...
And you're preparing for college?
University, yes. I think that my experience with UNICEF has been nothing but a great one. And they have not only helped me help other girls, but they have helped me personally learn about so many different things going on in Ethiopia and other countries around the world that I was not previously aware of. And I know that the relationship that I have with UNICEF can only grow and only continue to support other children around the world, and continue to give me a platform to speak out about these issues. So I think that it's been an amazing big part of my life, but it's been one that I see as necessary to my personal development and growth as an individual, and to the growth of children around the world.
And you still have the pencil project?
Yes. I have the Hannah Godefa project, and the Pencil Mountain project has been an initiative that has grown out of that, and we've seen great success, not just in basic school supplies, but in university resources for students, as well as wheelchairs for students with disabilities and software to help students at every level and every part of education, because I believe that it's not just about going to school, but about staying in school and using the skills and education that you've learned to bring educational success and success later on in life. And aside from the pencil project, we've also introduced a youth center, and that will be to be a testament to the advocacy that I've been working on around the world. And the youth center will primarily focus on training young girls who are out of formal school, and they're in they have had to leave school for whatever reason, and now we are focusing on training them in vocational education, such as midwifery and sewing and trade skills that they can use to bring income into the community and be able to support their families. So
you're partnering with local organizations to be able to do that?
Yes, we're partnering with local NGOs to bring that type of informal education to the community, so that as I've tried to exemplify internationally, these girls won't be left behind for whatever reason.
And how do you mobilize resources? You're going to school, you're traveling across countries and conference centers and so on, and you're working on your pencil project and the Hannah Godefa project and so on. How do you mobilize resources? Must be tough for a kid, 17 years.
Well, I think I've had a great network and a lot of support from other young people in Canada who have helped me mobilize resources. And in doing the pencil project, I have been able to come to a point where I now have a network of people who are willing to support the initiatives that I present, and I cannot claim anything for that, because it all comes from the support of volunteers and the people that have helped and the sponsors that have helped bring it together.
Where do you see yourself 10 years down the line?
I think if I am first, let me start by saying that I have to finish my education and graduate these in the coming months from high school, and then go on to post-secondary education. But I think that if I'm in a place where I'm able to still be a voice and still advocate for people, I'll be truly, genuinely happy, because I'll be doing what I was doing when I first started this project, and I'll be able to follow up on the passion that I've maintained for so long, which has been to help support children everywhere in all aspects of life, in particular focus on education. And I do see myself extending some sort of international influence and focusing on especially conflict resolution, because as I've seen firsthand in so many countries around the world, conflicts are really, really affecting and displacing young children, and it's making it so much harder for them to go back to school or to go back to their everyday lives, and bring so much psychological and physical trauma. So if I can work in that area in the future, I'll be genuinely happy.
Good point, and good luck. Thank you very much indeed, Hannah.
Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure having you on the show again.
Thank you.